Yo, what is up? Will here with Canyon from the Flock. And we are going to
Right.
go through some player props on Underdog today for the games. Decent slate. We don't have all the lines up on Underdog, but we'll take a look at the games that do have the lines up. And we're going to start here with the Pacers Sixers game, which I'm pretty excited about. This one, it's a 230 and a half total, and that's pretty reflective of the Sixers Pacers games we saw last season. We're pretty high scoring. And yeah, both these teams is pretty interesting. I don't think anyone expected the Sixers to start out 0-3. Definitely had some tough games. But yeah, I don't think anyone expected this start. So I think this is one of those games where I know it's a 12-point spread for the Sixers, and I do expect them to win this one. But I think this is one of those high spread, high total games that I think could be a sneaky close game. And, we could see these guys play pretty deep into the fourth from what we saw last season, too. So right here, injury wise, the big one is no Miles Turner still, but everything else is pretty standard from what we've seen. So starting off here, we'll take a look at player points,
Yep.
and I think I do want to bring up. It maybe isn't one of my favorite. Actually, it actually is probably one of my favorite game plays in this game. I do really like Embiid. Even at that 29.5 line, the over there, I do think the Sixers win this one. And Embiid was just a monster against the Pacers last season. I mean, 45 points, 41 points. Not that there's usually people who can stop Embiid. Definitely not on this Pacers team. I expect Embiid to shoot a ton, score a ton. And like I said, I think this is a high scoring game that the Sixers win. So I do like Embiid points. Anything else on the point side you like here?
Yeah, I mean, I like Hallie at 19 and a half. He's averaging 17 shots a game. He's had over 20. He's covered this line every single game so far. I know the Sixers are supposed to be a better matchup just overall, but I think even with Halliburton's volume that he's shooting at 17 a game, covering this every game, there's no reason to be scared of this line still.
Mm-hmm.
So I still like this at 19 and a half. And then I was looking at Jalen Smith too. No Miles Turner still. So, he played the most minutes he's played against the Pistons last time out. And when he plays full games, he's shooting 14, 15, 16 times a game. And so needing 12 and a half for a big man that should have higher percentages and higher efficiency. If he's shooting 12 to 14 times, he should be able to cover this pretty easily. I know it's Embiid, but he can stretch the floor pretty well as well. So I don't hate that. But yeah, I think my favorite's probably Hallie and Harden. I'm with you
Yeah.
on Embiid. He has another monster game. The history shows that. I know that the 29 and a half line is scary, obviously, but like you said, I think it's going to be a higher scoring game, higher pace game. But yeah, I think it's just the big boys in this one, actually. I think Harden, Embiid, and Hallie are my favorites.
Yeah, yeah, I do like Hallie. I think Ben Matherin is a really fun one. Yeah, the
Yeah.
line is pretty high, 17 and a half. He looks really good, and he's been shooting a ton, and I think that's like pretty. You feel pretty good about. But I mean, 17 and a half for any rookie is a scary line. But I do think the volume will be there for him. But I agree. I do
Yeah.
like Hallie. I think the volume's been pretty good, and that was kind of our big prediction for Hallie. A lot of people liked like Hallie this season, opportunity usage wise, but I think he's shooting a ton. I don't dislike his assists or anything, or even PRA if you like that, but I do think points even at 19 and a half is pretty nice. Yo, what is up? Troy, yo, what's up, guys? Been with you all since the beginning of the Extra Patch. Jalen Brunson first hit. Yes, sir. Dude, how have you been? Yeah, there's some names, man, who that
I
I
remember
like
that. I remember
consistently
that.
recognize from streams. Been the day ones, so I appreciate that. Yeah, let us know in the chat if you guys have any lines or things you're looking at. We're looking at Underdog specifically, and speaking of Underdog, if you use code Canyon, it's on that ticker below. 100% deposit match up to $100, minimum $10 deposit. If you want to take advantage of that, link is in the description as well. But like I said, we're going to be referencing Underdog Fantasy for a lot of these lines. So let us know if you guys have any props anywhere, but we're looking at Underdog specifically for any of the games tonight. We'll go through those that are on here. I think on the assist front, I do think on the Sixers side, I do like James Harden at 9.5. I like Harden points and assists tonight. He had 14 in both games against the Pacers last season. Like I said, games against the Pacers specifically, obviously with what we saw from the Sixers last season. But I think this is just, you got the 230 total. You've got Harden at 9.5, needs the 10 assists. It's a really good line. You see the value on books, right? Minus 146 on Pinnacle. Every single book has the over favored, some by a pretty significant margin. You see that minus 140. Those are pretty good odds on that line. And I just really like the line, and I think I really like this
Yeah.
game. And if I like Embiid to hit his points line, I think that bodes well for Harden being able to hit 10 assists in a faster paced game that I think is going to be higher scoring.
Yeah, I think I like his assists more than his points, actually,
Yeah.
more than I think about it. Looking at his history as well against not only the Pacers, but Halliburton specifically. You look at his game log, and when he's played against Halliburton, it's 14 assists, 14 assists, 12 assists, 14 assists, 14 assists, 8 assists in 6 games in his career. So really good track record there. And yeah, I mean, like you said, caters to Embiid playing well. And so I think that 9.5 line does feel a little safer. I think he can cover probably in a higher scoring game in
Yeah.
this one. It's a matter if the Pacers can keep him up, right? This
Yeah.
becomes a game where they kind of start clicking as the 76ers. It could get a little scary. I know it's a 12-point spread, but
Yeah. I
I
think,
don't know.
yeah, right. And I think the thing you kind of hang your hat on a little bit is, that, the teams the Pacers have played, right, haven't been the best teams. I like the Pistons a lot. I think they're pretty underrated this season. That's their one win. Close game with the Wizards and with the Pacers, or sorry, with the Spurs as well. But I think the thing you hang your hat on a little bit is just that the Sixers, man, have not been able to kind of run away with games, right? And they've had some tougher opponents, right? Obviously the Celtics, probably arguably one of the better teams, but yeah, I think that's kind of what you're hanging your hat on a little bit in this game. Even with a 12-point spread at home, it's that the Sixers have not looked, insane, right? So I think that's the thing you hang your hat on a little bit, that, potentially the Pacers can keep this one closer. Do you lean more towards Sixers with that in mind? With 12-point favorites, I mean, the points are heavily on their side, right? You're looking at a 230 total. I mean, you're looking at 120 plus for the Sixers.
Yeah, I do like the point side for the Sixers guys more. Indiana's number one in pace this season already so far, so it's a big pace up spot for the 76ers. So I think even if this is a blowout, I think Harden can still cover this in I mean, we saw it in game one, him cover his points in the first half, I think it was. And so I like his points, I like his assists. Even if it's a blowout, I still think he can cover that in 3 quarters. And if hopefully, this young, gritty Pacers team can keep it close. But the pace up spot is a big deal for them. I think Sixers are right in the middle of the pack, and Pacers being number one, not even really close. Pacers are number one by far. So it could bode really well for Harden. So I like his assists and I like his points. I think I like Harden just the most in general in this game, if not night. We'll look at the other games, but yeah, Harden and Embiid. Halliburton, it is scarier on the other side. I'd like Halliburton to continue his scoring. They're going to have to keep it close. But like you said, the implied total is higher on the Sixers, so should probably look to hit those lines. And Harden's points line is not high enough yet for me to be worried about it.
Yeah, and like you had mentioned, Hallie, I think this 8.5 assist line is really, really appealing. It looks really good, obviously, with what we've seen from Halliburton. I mean, even with his increased shooting and scoring that we're kind of expecting from him, I mean, he's still such a good passer. I think he can hit this, especially with the emergence of guys like Mathurin. But I agree that I do feel a little bit better about Harden assists and Embiid points, but I still like both those Hallie lines. Points, assists, even his PRA.
Let's look at what is Embiid's rebound line at.
Yeah,
Pacers are also one of the worst rebounding teams right now. Rebound rate in the league. So you got to be down there at 12.5. I don't hate that. No Turner. Not like Turner's a fantastic rebounder anyway. But no Turner, I think.
Yeah, I mean, Jalen Smith, he's really not a 5, right? And that's kind of what they've kind of been doing too. So I think, you look at you look at Embiid, who, obviously I told you those 2 big scoring games, right? 45 and 41. He had 13 rebounds and 20 rebounds in the other 2 games against the Pacers last season. So I think that's another good spot. I know the value might not look like it's here. There's some books that have, the over favored slightly, some of the under. I think it's still a fine line at 12.5, but I do think I probably would lean points with Embiid specifically, and definitely the Harden lines, but that's a good shout.
Yeah, just looking at rebounds for Harden too, rebound and assist lines. His His rebound plus assist line is 16.5 on underdog. I really like that as well.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's a guy that can be like 10 boards, 7 assists, or 7 boards, 10 assists. And either of those obviously cover. And so against a team like the Pacers, where high pace, high rebound rate for their opposing teams, I think that could bode really well for Harden as well. So I kind of just like Harden all over the board, I guess. Rebounds and assists, PRA,
Yeah.
assists straight up. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, if you don't want to bank on his efficiency, I mean, last game he probably could have covered. He just shot really poorly. If you don't
Right.
want to bank on that, I like the rebound and assist or just assist straight up as well.
Yeah, definitely. And with that, we can kind of transition into a game that is definitely less exciting. It's a tough one. I think we'll go over to this Boston Chicago game here, where Zach LaVine is expected to play. This one's pretty interesting. I think that the tough thing for me, Boston's only a 6-point spread. It is Chicago at home. Do you almost feel similarly that like the way that the Pacers could get blown out, Chicago could tonight? Just from what we've seen, even though the spread is 6-12 and they're at home, it's just we've just seen Chicago, obviously in the playoffs in the regular season last year, just get embarrassed in times by teams like the Celtics, who are just better, all around.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. They got blown out by the Cavs in Cleveland, or sorry, at home. But they beat the Heat at the Heat
Yeah,
game one this year, so that was on the back of DeRozan really without Levine.
right.
I I don't know. I'm kind of scared of this game as well, just because they do kind of fold to good teams. They probably just got the Heat on the opening day, kind of fresh, or before anything was really settled in the lineup of shots and all that kind of stuff. Because opening day, anything can happen. Everybody's kind of new, fresh. Um, I don't know what I love the most. I don't hate Tatum assists. I know you and I mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
What is it at? It's still at
It's
going
just
through it
a
right
it's
now.
just a good line. You get the 4 flat on underdog. I know like the 4.5 like doesn't look great value, but like a lot of these flat lines that you get on
Yeah,
underdog are pretty nice, especially if you feel really safe about them as far as like putting them in, a set.
yeah. He's just shooting so well, so he doesn't really like
Yeah.
have to get
It's
rid
so
of it.
funny too because he does have like really solid scores, especially with Brogdon in the mix as well now. But I agree, like he's just so good, and I mean that's kind of a Tatum thing, right? He has the ball in his hands a decent amount. You're not really banking on him being like an amazing,
Yeah,
facilitator, but it's more of just that dude's gonna have the ball in his hand a ton. Maybe if you feel like the defense, I don't know. It's really hard to like make cases of him having strong assist games. I think it's just a usage play that he's just gonna have the ball in his hands.
yeah. I might like his points more even still. 27
Yeah.
and a half on underdog. It's a pretty high line, I know, but I mean he's covered this every game. He's kind of on a tear. I think he's going to continue to shoot the ball well. He's shooting the ball over 20 times a game. And if this game goes like we're worried it does, where Boston kind of runs away with it, it's going to be because Tatum's popping off.
Yeah.
Um, and so and I'm not like worried about Jalen Brown. Where it's like, oh, what if there's a Jalen Brown game? It's like, well, we've already seen it both.
They just do
35
those
game
back to
one,
back.
and yeah, so like they can both coexist. We've seen it before. Brogdon
Hmm.
comes off the bench, so he doesn't really disrupt any usage there offensively, and he's also a smart player, so he's just going to put up shots himself.
Yeah.
Um, so I still like Tatum a lot. 27 and a half. I might even go ERA here. I like his rebounding opportunities,
Yeah.
and just the ability to do that. So maybe Tatum PRA is what I like a lot. And then the last one I was going to say is Levine, 20 and a half on underdog. Good record against the Celtics. He's covered this line 6 of the last 7 times he's played them. The last one he didn't was the most recent one last year, late in the season, kind of he left the game early, 27 minutes played. They kind of started to get blown out, and it was late in the season, so they're probably just resting or
Mm.
load managing a little. But I like Levine's track record against the Celtics. I think Celtics will prioritize DeRozan a little bit more defensively, and I like Levine's ability to cover this line more than
Yeah.
DeRozan to cover his tonight. I think.
Yeah,
Um,
I don't hate that. I want to hop over to the chat. Yo, what's up, Eli? Laurie Markkinen, 10.5 rebounds plus assists. Laurie's really interesting. I mean, obviously, I don't think anyone expected this kind of start to the season for not just him,
the
but the
Jazz.
Jazz. Right? Yeah, nobody would have predicted 3-0. I don't even think the Jazz front office were
Yeah, they're kind of
expecting a win.
ruining their own plans.
Right. Um, But yeah, I think Laurie, I think for rebounds and assists, I know over the past two games, what was it? The past two games he's had really strong. Yeah, 12 boards and 13 boards in, 39-minute games against the Pelicans and Wolves. I think I don't think the line is as great as it appears just off of, as an assist guy. I mean, Laurie's shooting so much, right? And I know the 10.5, you get the rebounds plus assists, you feel like you get a little cherry on top. But I mean, I think he's averaging, I think I have it up here, he's averaging 3.7 assists off of 4.7 potential. So, I mean, he's never been like a high volume, like passer. And I think we're seeing that even more in like with the Jazz. He's just kind of like that dude apparently. So yeah. I think that just feels like the right line as far as like, yeah, he probably is right around here. I don't think I'm in love with it, especially looking at 2 39-minute games, him grabbing 12 and 13 boards.
Yeah, we have to remember that, he's having an incredible start. 2 of those games did go to overtime, which helps. Right. I mean, if you look at the stats before they even went into overtime, they were still amazing. But it's also against another more high-paced teams, poor defensive teams. Pelicans, high-paced, poorer defensive team. Minnesota should be a better defensive team, but Jazz are kind of just surprising people. But, I mean, it's the Rockets, so this kind of fits the mold still. Another high-paced team, another poor defensive team. So I do like Markkanen to keep rolling in this game.
Yeah, no, I think like if I had to pick one, I would definitely pick the over. I just think that I tend to look at lines compared to what we've seen previously and kind of like pin them off of that. Jokic PRA. I feel like Jokic PRA is just always so dang high, but it always just kind of hits.
Yeah, I think it's around 45 today. Again, against Portland, another, higher scoring forward defense team. They've slowed down their pace this year.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't. Portland's defense isn't great, but I think if anything, Nurkic is the kind of guy that might slow down Jokic a little bit. Just give him a little trouble because Nurkic plays bully ball. He'll foul out before he lets Jokic run all over him. And so I fear Nurkic a little bit. They've had a hot start. I think he might give him a little trouble, but I mean, it's Jokic. He's going to get his own. So, and 45 isn't really that high, to be honest. If you can get that around 45 for his PRA. So, I don't hate it. Should be a higher scoring game as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting too, because I think I actually am kind of a believer that I know Jokic has some pretty crazy assist games, but I am kind of a believer that the pieces around Jokic are pretty consistently going to shoot more than we've seen over the past couple seasons. And it's kind of obvious, right? Like you didn't have Jamal Murray, you didn't have Michael Porter, but even KCP is shooting a decent amount too, right? And Aaron Gordon's still going to do stuff. So I think it's good. Like I would definitely take the over, but I think there's some other stuff I like more tonight specifically. Anything else in this Bulls Celtics game? I know we talked about Tatum points, liking assists, potentially liking LaVine. Anything else in this game jumping out to you?
No, it's about it. There's a few things jumping out to me just because I think it'll either be
it's lower a pretty scoring. Decent, I know it's a pretty decent total. Like I actually was pretty surprised, right? If you look at this, you've got the where is it? Total's 225. I was expecting like a Celtics, game to be closer to like a 215, 218 maybe. And they're only 6-point favorites in Chicago.
I think one of two things happen in this game, which makes me not like a ton of plays in this, and that's either it's lower than 225 or it's a blowout. And the Celtics, might cover their implied total, but they kind of blow them out and they don't play the second half quarter. So those two outcomes are most likely for me. So that's why I'm not in love with a ton of stuff. But I mean, Tatum hitting his points kind of bodes well for a Boston blowout, or I mean, LaVine points just off his history against the Celtics. But with those two outcomes, I'm not in love with a ton of overs in this one. But I'm not going to go under DeRozan because DeRozan.
Yeah, it's a pretty fair line with LaVine in the lineup against the Celtics. This kind of like 24.5. Like I'm really tempted because it's DeRozan, but yeah, I think it's. What's up?
I do kind of gut instinct, do kind of like Vooch 15.5. I know it's
Yeah,
a
it's a
weird
good line.
one. Boston
Horford's
Bigs
back, but yeah.
defensively. Yeah, Boston Bigs defensively, even with Horford in, defensively their bigs were their weakest spot last year. And so I don't hate it for Vooch. I wonder what his rebound is at. Uh, all over the place here. You got his rebound line for me? I'm looking at something else.
Yeah, I'll do the work for you. While I'm running the stream, I'll pull up which is rebound.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it.
No, he's at 9.5. It's fine.
Yeah, okay, never mind. I don't love it.
I know. No, I do like the points. I think that's a good shout. We'll kind of wrap it up here. We're missing a ton of lines for underdog, but we'll go over to
Yeah.
this Toronto Heat game. I'll let you talk about this one a little bit. I'm
Yep.
not as excited about this game.
Yeah, another game. Yeah, another game that I think could be lower scoring. Obviously, these are two good defensive teams. The total is 215, so it's already kind of implied that it's lower scoring. But it could be a close game, which bodes well for minutes for the starters. And we know that the Raptors play their starters a crap ton. One thing that popped up to me was Siakam's at 5.5 assists. I kind of like the under on that, just because of how good I think the Heat are defensively and how lower scoring this game should be. The pace isn't going to be anything crazy either. It's a pace down game for Miami. So I like the under there for Siakam on assists. Points, Jimmy's line is fair. I'm not in love with anything over or under there either. And then kind of the same thing. We don't have any Scotty Barnes on here right now. He's game time decision. So we're waiting on that. But maybe if Barnes is out, I don't love the underplay on Siakam as much. But for now, I do kind of like him under 5.5 assists. I just don't think it's a high enough scoring game for him to get 6 assists and contribute offensively himself against this defense. So that's my first instinct here. And then not in love with anything for Bam yet. He's a little too inconsistent for me as well. Fred VanVleet, if you know Fred VanVleet, he can go, 3 for 12 from 3 or 7 for 10. So I'm never going to touch him. Yeah, OG's a little interesting too. If Barnes is out, OG's over on points is interesting. 15.5 is a very, very good line for him too. So yeah, I think Siakam under assists, OG over points are two that stick out for me. On the Heat side, Jimmy's 22.5 again. Very fair line. I'm not touching it. A little worried about that. Bam. A little scared there. Maybe Tyler Harrow. He's been doing well for them recently. So I don't hate his points. I could see him getting 20. Yeah. Let's look at the assists here for Miami. 2.5 for Bam is interesting. Not in love with it. It's not on underdog right now, though. Jimmy 4.5 on underdog is not too bad. I like that more than his points. For him. Yeah, nothing crazy. I mean, again, this shouldn't be a super high scoring game by any means. So if anything, I'm kind of looking at unders. And I mean, they have the line set like they think it's going to be a lower scoring game anyway. So there's nothing shouting out to me other than the two that I already mentioned.
Yeah, and I do want to mention for Siakam assists, who's had some pretty crazy assist games right over the past couple of games. I think 9 and 11 over the past two. Had one in the first one. I do want to shout out from a potential assist standpoint. He's right around like 11, which I mean kind of bodes well for where the line is at, right? So even in his monster assist game, from a potential standpoint, he is 7 assists, around 11 potential, which is a pretty high mark, right?
Yeah.
Typically, even like the best assist players, right? You talk about guys like Chris Paul and Luka Doncic; those players are right around 50%, right? So being anywhere above 50% usually is a tell of pretty strong efficiency, which usually that tends to come back down to earth. So I think looking at that, I know a lot of people would look at the 5 assist line and this 5.5 here and be like, oh, you smashed the over. Look at these last 2 games, man. And he's getting a ton of usage, right? That's kind of what Siakam has been in this offense, so I do expect that. But I do agree that I definitely lean the under at that line with traditionally what we've seen from Siakam, right? Just in general too. And I think these last 2 games aren't 100% indicative of what you can expect from him night in and night out.
Yeah. And I know they're in a back-to-back too. Like they just play each other as well, and he had 9. But I don't love him running it back in that format against his Heat. They're too smart. They're too good defensively. Spoelstra's going to change something. You got the Cody Martin narrative now with him tackling. Who was it? Who did he tackle? Is it, I think it was Christian Coloco.
I'm
Anyway,
not. I'm
that's
not trying to get suspended for talking about it. You know,
doesn't matter.
you just get suspended for being a part of it.
Yeah, yeah. I think a lot of the public's going to be over 5.5 assists. I don't think they should be. I don't think he's can run it back there.
I think it's just like the fair line. Like I think this 4.5. Like I think I would not feel comfortable taking that, or even a 5 flat. I think that's kind of tough because I do think like 5 is like pretty, like he could hit that just with what his usage overall. But yeah, I do definitely lean the under. So I think that will kind of do it for the games that we have right now. If there's anything in chat, let us know. But I think our kind of favorite plays, a lot of them were in that first Sixers Pacers game. Yeah. Really liked. I liked Embiid over 29.5, even at the high line. Really like a Harden assist over 9.5. I like Halliburton over points. I think it's 19.5 on underdog. 18.5 elsewhere, with obviously the odds being a little bit different there. But like Hallie scoring tonight, like Embiid with what we've seen from him against the Sixers. I do think that's a game that can be closer. That kind of 12-point spread, I think it can be closer, even at home for the Sixers. So definitely like those two. Any else you want to shout out before we kind of close up here?
No, I'm just gonna say personally, I'll probably end up fading this Raptors Miami game. I know I gave out like what I like out of it. If you're looking at it personally, I'm probably gonna fade it. I don't like a back-to-back games either. Just betting on that. The other games, yeah, there's lines aren't up yet. So if you have questions for that, come to the Discord. If you're in that Extra Pass Discord, drop them in there. If you're in the Fantasy Flock Discord, drop them in there. Comment on this, whatever you want to do, chat, all that kind of stuff. So we'll be looking at stuff throughout the day prior to these games. But yeah, just the 3 games up on the slate so far that we're going to talk about. But we should be in the Discord tonight. So go ahead and do that. And we should be streaming a live stream after the full slate on the Fantasy Basketball Flock channel, talking about fantasy stuff, waiver wires, trades, whatever you want to talk about. Should I be worried about this guy? Should I trade for this guy? We'll be looking at that kind of stuff after this full slate tonight.
Yeah, and that'll probably be around, this is kind of a live air conversation, probably be around like 10:30. But if you want to take a peek, we'll have that set up before, so you'll know what time it is if you go to the Fantasy Flock Basketball channel. But yeah, appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you later.